record. Okay, so I've been studying a lot this week. Actually, the last several days. So I get up real early and I just wake up. But I really felt like God was revealing a lot of stuff to me and stuff. And then this story came to me. And it's not necessarily what I was studying or anything. But I want to tell the story because when I was thinking about it, I want to hear it. That's one of the reasons why I'm recording it. If it turns out the way I think, I want other people to hear it. But I want to hear it myself because I might use it in the future. And so you guys are kind of my guinea pigs. And I may or may not change it in the future. I don't know. So I'm just going to tell the story. And then I'll explain what it's about. So, in a land far, far away, in a time long, long ago, there was a king. And he was the greatest king who had ever lived. And he had more lands, more property, more horses, more army men, more money than any king before him or any king ever after him. And he was considered not only a great king with great amount of merchandise and so forth, but a very kind king. And he only went to war if absolutely necessary, and he did not even demand that everyone was a part of his kingdom. But he said, as long as you're at peace with me, I am at peace with you. And he would even lease out his property to people from other kingdoms that maybe they fled or for whatever reason they just wanted to lease land. And they could have a vineyard or whatever, and he was a very kind and gentle king. Although he was worshipped. I mean, he was loved. He was admired by everyone. But something was just kind of missing inside. Because as being such a wonderful king, he was only known by people as a king. And really his life inside was sort of lonely. Because only few people can even get in the presence of a king. And those people usually only are ones that have bad news or are there to protect him or something like this. And he just really desired to be known and to fully known as a common person, as an equal to someone. He didn't want to be looked at as a king. He wanted to be looked at as a fellow person. So he called in all of the people around him, all his wise people and everything, and he said, I have a plan. I'm going to go away for a while. And I'm going to live amongst the people in a common house. And I'm going to walk around as a shepherd boy for a while and just live outside and see what it is to be normal. So he made plans and he slipped away. And while he was gone one day, he was walking amongst one of his vineyards that he had leased out to some foreigners. And he looks over, and in the vineyard, he sees the most beautiful woman he had ever seen. His heart leapt within his chest. It was like his breath had literally been taken. It was not only that she was beautiful, but he knew inside she was the fulfillment of the object of all of his inner delights and longings. And he was smitten. Meanwhile, let's back up. There was a little girl from the land of Callus. Let's call her Callie. Callie from Callus. Her family was a impoverished family. They were, what's the word for those impoverished people back in the day? peasants. They were peasants. And they were being tortured in their own land, and so they fled. Her and her whole family, her mother and father and brothers, lots of brothers. She was the only girl, and they fled away. And they were near this beautiful kingdom with this beautiful king, and they said, you know what we'll do? We have heard that this king has actually extended that anyone who wants to come in and be a part of his kingdom and a free part can do so. However, they have to give up all of their goods, all of their own rights to their own claim, and come and live in the traditions of everything of that kingdom. We don't really want to do that. So, we will lease land from this king, because he's extended the offer. And we will run a vineyard, and we will grow a vineyard, and we will become rich. So they do that. They go and they approach, and they rent the vineyard.
So wait a second. They could go to the kingdom and be a part of the kingdom if they adapt themselves to the kingdom lifestyle. But if they didn't want to do that, they could just lease land and still... Okay.
Yes. So the king, this wise and kind king, said, hey, anyone from any kingdom can freely come and join our kingdom. You can adapt our ways, and you can be under our protection. We will provide for you, but you have to adapt our ways. You have to become one of us. You can't, if you're a heathen in your own land or whatever, you have to give up your own gods and your own ways and come and worship our gods and our ways. You have to become one of us in our kingdom. And they didn't want to do that. While although they were being persecuted and ran for their lives, they loved a lot of their own traditions and a lot of the freedoms and their old gods and things. So they decided to just lease land and become rich. So they leased land. Well, the brothers were terrible, evil brothers, and they did not love their sister. And so they often forced their sister to go work and be the only one to work in this vineyard. Well, in this day and time, the only way for a woman to succeed in long term would to be married and to be given protection and given sustenance from a husband. This was a terrible time. A woman could be dragged away and raped and murdered or killed. The only hope she ever had was to hopefully find somebody that would find her acceptable and beautiful and marry her and protect her. Well, in this day, the most fair women of the land that were sought first were those that were without blemish, completely beautiful, without any scars. I mean, there were women everywhere to choose from. And there were very few men, because a lot of the men got killed in battle and things. So they had all of these women to choose from. So they send their sister out to work in the vineyard, and she gets scarred and marred, and she gets baked by the sun, to the point where she just looks hideous to look at.
Oh, wow.
You can tell she's a very beautiful woman underneath, but now she's not. When you had your pick of the litter, she is not one anyone would pick. One day she is working in the vineyard, and she is thinking, there's really no hope in this. I'm going to work here till I die. My family's going to get the reward of this vineyard, and I'm never going to find love. I'm never going to be protected, and I'm never going to be cared for. And she looks over at that moment, and she sees a shepherd boy that is the most beautiful, most stunning man she'd ever seen. Handsome man she'd ever seen. And her heart leapt within her chest. And she felt things she had never felt before. All of the longings that she was thinking that she would never feel, she instantly realized could be met in this shepherd boy. And they run up to each other and they start talking. And over the next few months, every single day, the shepherd boy would show up. He would see the little young lady, and Their hearts would leap. And they would talk of things, and they would dream of things. And every day the shepherd boy would say, you know, why don't you come away with me? And there was a part of her that she knew there's no way I'm ever going to be able to experience these things anywhere else. I'm never going to feel them. Yet I cannot leave. There's too much attached. How could I leave my family? How could I leave the things I love, the traditions I have, everything I have? How could I just can't. And they were like gypsies. They celebrated a lot, and they sang a lot and danced a lot, and their heart loved it. And she was like, I can't. She was torn between what she believed was the fulfillment of the desires and delights of her heart, and yet her own home and her family and the things that kept her. So she kept saying, yes, someday, 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 yet not wanting, feeling like she needed to get things taken care of and just right. And one day the shepherd boy said, okay, I tell you what, I'm going to leave. I'm going to go. But someday I will come back for you. I will come back for you. So be watching and be ready. And he knew he had to get back to his kingdom. He could not leave any longer. He tarried as long as he could, begging her to go. So he left. And he said, I'm going to make plans. I'm going to get all my men. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to marry this girl. In the meantime, when he leaves, she sits in her bed and says, oh, what have I done? I let him go. The only thing that could find the desires of my heart, and she runs all around the village and tries everything she can to fill the delights and the longing of her heart, and she can't. And to the point she's on her bed and she's almost just ready to die. She said, I'm done. I'm done with life. I'm done with everything. I don't know what to do. She runs to the watchman. She's like, have you seen the shepherd boy anywhere? No, they haven't seen him. It's like, that's it. I'm done. I'm done with this life. I'm done with this world. I'm done. I don't care. I can't find any joy anywhere. I'm leaving. I'm leaving this town. I'm leaving this village. I'm out. And she walks out of the gates of the village. At the same time, she hears in the distance loud processions, very loud processions. And she hears people saying, the king is coming to our town. The king is coming. She says, I don't care. I don't want anything to do with this king. My shepherd boy is all I want. I don't care. All of a sudden, 3 horses come flying up to her. Are you Callie from Calais? Yes, I'm Callie from Calais. The king is calling for you. It's like, I don't really care about this king. I'm not going to go see this king. I am looking for the delight of my heart. I'm searching for my beloved. So she stands there, and as she's standing there, she sees the king approaching, getting closer and closer and closer. He finally comes up, takes off his crown, takes off his robes, and she sees him as the shepherd boy. He says, come, marry me, I am the king, come away with me. They have the most fulfillment of all of their joys and desires in each other. And they go away and they're married. Yet, the story doesn't end here, because Callie's heart betrays her. And although he is the longing to all of her desires and all the things that she could dream that she would want, something keeps begging at her and beckoning her. And all of a sudden, she starts to find delight in who she has become. Now, she is the king's most precious and most beautiful bride. Now, she is the king's bride. Something about her heart starts to love being the king's bride, and starts to turn from loving the king to loving being his bride. And she basks in the glory of it. And the king realizes that her heart is leaving, and he lots of times often walks by and knocks gently on her door. Callie, Callie. She says, yes, I'm busy now. Give me time. I will come see you again in your chambers. Well, one day he walked by. And as he left, his scent lingered. And she got a whiff and she remembered. She remembered all the longings of her heart. She remembered the times in the vineyard where she was so broken and so lonely. She remembered the times they embraced and how beautiful it was, and she broke inside. She said, oh, I would give up being the bride of the king just to be his beloved one more time. So she runs to the door, opens the door. Yeah, he'd already left the hall. She runs out of the hall. She runs into the street, out of the kingdom, out of the castle, into the street. She's asking everywhere, but she gets pushed down. Mud gets on her. She runs around. They no longer notice. She is the queen. She walks up to everyone. Where is my beloved? Like, who is your beloved? They don't even know who she is any longer. They abuse her. They beat her. And right when she's about to flee the kingdom, all of a sudden the horse comes up. And it's the king one more time. And he reaches his hand down. And he picks her up and puts her on. He says, my beloved, just come away with me. And they do. And they ride away. And they embrace. And this time, she not only leaves her own kingdom and her own family, she leaves herself behind, only to delight in being the beloved of the king. Does anyone know what story that is?
It's the story of God and us.
It is the Song of Solomon. But what is missed in that story, I think, when we read it, I went through and marked all of the words where the beloved, the king or the prince, speaks to his beloved. And there's some of these words, and I'm going to have later in the future, and I'll probably tell this story at the beginning of my Song of Solomon study. There's symbolism and all these beautiful things, but what we miss is when he looked at her and all of that dirtiness, brokenness, scars, before the relationship, the desire that he had toward her. I don't think we can get our hands around the desire that God has for us. I think we always kind of have this, if I was living right or clean or doing things right, God could desire me. God would desire me more if I was, like, look, God desires us in ways that he uses the most language we could think of to be the most intimate, most close, the most vivid imagery of all of desire. And he is saying, I desire you like that. Because really, this song is a song of songs because it's everybody's song. It's the desire that God has for us and the way that he is that fulfillment of desire in us. The part I want to read